Thank you.
Let us pray. Almighty God, as we gather today at this meeting, we ask that you will be in our midst. Help us to make decisions that will be pleasing to you. Help us to be able to discuss the matters at hand in a reasonable way and to be willing to give up having our own way. We beseech you to let this meeting be productive and, as should be the case in all areas of our lives, help us to keep you at the forefront of our minds as we do the work set before us. Amen. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the people in our communities. Continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Lord God, of righteousness and truth, grant to all members of this council and to all in positions of responsibility the guidance of your Holy Spirit. May they never be motivated through love of power, desire to please, or unworthy ideals, but laying aside all private interests and prejudices, keep in mind their responsibility to seek to improve the condition of all. So may your kingdom come and your name be hallowed. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Please be seated. Okay, there are no plans for a fire alarm test. If you hear the alarm, please leave the building by the nearest exit. Please ensure mobile phones are switched off or on silent. Restrooms are located on all floors, but please ask a member of staff for details should you require one. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be loaded onto the council's YouTube channel. Can I please remind all members that whilst we can disagree politically, please remain respectful to each other whilst dealing with council business. Now, members of the public, members and officers, you're reminded that under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014, the press and public may film, audio record, photograph and use social media whilst this meeting is in progress for Part A items only, and as long as no other disruption is caused to the meeting. Anyone filming is asked to focus their attention on elected members rather than other visitors. Now, unfortunately, I have some very sad news to report. One of our former employees, Jürgen Voges, has died recently, and his funeral will be on the 23rd of April, 2026. Jürgen was employed at this council from June 1992 to February 2005, working his way up to senior technician in the engineers department. Jürgen was also involved with twinning for over 30 years, fulfilling the role of secretary and treasurer. On behalf of the council, I send my sincere condolences to Jürgen's family and friends. Can you now please join me for a minute's silence as a mark of respect? Councillor Potter.
With your permission, would I be allowed to say just a couple of words on Jurgen, please?
Yes, of course
Yeah.
you can.
As many of you know, Jurgen, after he retired from the council, became part of the Lib Dem family for many, many years. He became a good friend to many of us. He was an agent. He looked after us. He was wonderfully organised. But I think his great passion was, and he relayed the story actually at my wedding, that he was born in Nazi Germany at the time and spent the rest of his life trying to make sure that we all learned from those mistakes going forward. And that's why twinning was so important of him, how regardless of the EU or not in the EU, that a Europe that's united against tyranny is always a better place, and working together is always a better thing. And Jurgen represented so much that was good and honourable about people, whether it was he would never let his wife open her own car door, he would always be the gentleman and let her in. He was just genuinely a lovely gent, and we all miss him lots. So it's so sad.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Now, can I wish all the retirees the very best and thank you for your service you've given the people of Preston, in particular, Councillor Saxena, for your 40 years service. Also, very good luck and best wishes to all colleagues standing in the forthcoming elections. I would now like to bring in the leader, Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for bringing me in. It's really appreciated. So obviously we've got two, potentially three of our members who may not be with us in May. So firstly, I want to say goodbye to the absolute Labour legend that's Jonathan Saxena. I did mention in the Freeman speech a lot about his background, that he was born in Preston into a large family and his mum and dad worked in our NHS here, and his education. I also mentioned about how he worked for decades in the Harris Library and even his talent as a writer and a musician. But I really want to pay tribute to 4 decades of service to this community, one of the longest serving councillors in the history of Preston City Council, I will imagine. So obviously John was elected back in 1984 for Brookfield, worked with an equally unique personality, John Brown, and many others going forward, and then later he moved to Ribbleton and he's contributed immensely to our city and making people's lives better. Jonathan is literally one of the hardest working councillors we've ever seen. I would say not just in Preston, but also across the country. In his 40 years, he's dealt with thousands of pieces of casework. I've been out canvassing with him. He knows every single street like the back of his hand, and he deals with residents' issues at every level as soon as they arise. Again, a few of his achievements as a ward councillor: a new cycleway in Brookfield, improvements to Syon Park and the refurbishment of Greenlands Estate under his watch. And in Ribbleton, he brought back the local PAC meetings and improved Grange Park there, which also included the reopening of the Interpretation Centre a few years back, which I was at, which was a fantastic day. And he's also not afraid to go against the grain. So he's been very oppositional, which I quite like, because that's a streak I have in me, believe it or not, against the Red Sky incinerator. So he was way ahead of his time about the monstrosity that would have been and the environmental damage it had caused to that community. And also he challenged our officers, which I like as well, over things like the retrospective attempt to change the space of residents who had family members buried in the graves in Ribbleton Cemetery. So he's really stuck up for people at every single level. So Jonathan's been on nearly 100 committees, outside and public bodies. He's hardworking, he's naturally talented, and he progressed very quickly, being chairs of several committees and even deputy leader from 2004 to 2007, with a period as acting leader. We know him as mayor from 2002 to 2003, where he met the Queen Elizabeth, which was a very fond experience for him. So most of all, we need more people like Jonathan in politics. He puts this community first all the time, he puts people all the time, and he does not act in the interest of career and self-advancement. He acts in the interest of the people he represents. So I doubt we're going to see the like of him again, and I think the whole chamber will say our best wishes to Jonathan, and I'm sure everyone in this chamber, as soon as we can, will support bestowing on him being made an alderman, so we can celebrate that 40 years of contribution as a great individual and human being at Preston City Council. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Now, as you all know, this is my final ordinary full council meeting of my
Excuse me,
mayoral
Madam
year.
Mayor, I've got
Oh, sorry.
a couple of others I'd like to say goodbye to. They're all Labour this time.
Okay.
Next one, Councillor Jade Morgan. Jade was elected 10 years ago in St Matthew's Ward. She's been a councillor ever since. At the time, it was a huge achievement. She was actually 18 years of age when she was elected. And again, anyone that knows about the male-dominated nature of local politics, an older person's nature of older politics, that was a huge achievement. That didn't deter her though, and over the years, we all watched her grow in confidence and were impressed with her levels of maturity and intelligence as a young woman. Most of all though, she's a kind and thoughtful person who's well-intentioned and cares for everyone she comes in contact with. Jade went on to serve on several committees and has also taken key roles, including the lead member for women. She also became the chair of our Labour group for several years and guided us in often choppy times. She also chaired many of our election rallies when with the likes of John McDonnell, Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner, appearing either in person or online. But one thing she has been very successful at is supporting the rights of women and girls, including raising the issue of period poverty and making sure that becomes central to what the council is doing in terms of our equality agenda. For me, it's always very sad when we lose young people, especially young female members, because we need this place to be more diverse than it is. We've got a serious problem reflecting the people who are out there. So I'm sure you'll join me in all saying goodbye to Jade today. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. And finally, in the unlikely instance Council in Brooks is elected to a rural seat in May, I want to say thank you to Lynn as well. She's been with us for 10 years and she's represented 3 wards, Deepdale, Garrison and City Centre over those 3 years. Lynn's always been someone who likes a bit of variation, so moving from 3 wards was something that she did enjoy. Lynn is a very good friend of mine. I used to work with her in the civil servant, so we became really good personal friends because we spent years as trade union officials at tax credits. And she taught me so much as a union individual. And many of my anti-establishment views were all even more emboldened by working with Lynn when we realised how our employer was not always categorising itself as a progressive employer. Lynn got heavily involved in the local trades council and she did things like being ejected from Jeff Driver's county hall in a protest against austerity in 2011, something that warmed me to her even further. She stood for Labour in 2016 and won in Deepdale, and she's been an active and key member of the Labour group ever since. Like many others, Lynn has not been want to necessarily be in the cabinet or in a key position. She works very hard behind the scenes, representing residents at every level. For example, she's doing a lot of work dealing with empty heritage buildings in the city centre, and Lynn and colleagues are involved in that. She's also been essentially supporting the current direction of our Labour group and ensuring we deliver all we were elected to deliver, Madam Mayor. So again, finally from Lynn, if she's not successful in rural east or wherever she's standing, rural north, my apologies. But you never know, Madam Mayor, you never know. So on the occasion, Councillor Wallace isn't re-elected. I want to say goodbye from everyone in this council chamber. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
And it's true, you never know. Right, I was saying this is my final ordinary full council meeting of my mayoral year. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everyone for your support throughout this time in this honourable role. I have enjoyed every minute of it, well, almost. I have been so pleased that many of you have supported my events to raise money for my 3 charities, and my ball on Saturday is also a sellout. So I thank you, and it should be a fantastic evening. Now, I also want to say my outgoing church service is at the Parish Church St George's, will take place at 12:30 p.m. on Sunday, 10th of May. Robes are required, so please be at the town hall for about 10:30 a.m. for robing, and I hope most of you will join me. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Can anybody indicate if they've got any disclosable pecuniary interest or personal and prejudicial interest in the items being discussed on the agenda? Oh, we have a few. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, it's just a personal interest regarding notice of motion regarding the DFGs, because obviously I work in adult social care for LCC.
Councillor Landless, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's on item 7, licensing fees. I feel I need to declare an interest as I am a personal licence holder and also own a licensed premises covered by the City of Preston. So I will be leaving the room while you discuss the licensing fees.
Thank you, Councillor Land. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, personal and prejudicial on the DFG item.
Thank you. Is that everybody? I think I've got everybody now. Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting held on the 5th of March 2026. Are members happy that I sign the minutes as a correct record? Thank you. Item 4 is questions from members of the public, but there are no questions for this meeting. Now we'll take item 5, which is questions to cabinet members, chairs of committees and representatives of outside bodies. Members are entitled to ask a question of any cabinet member or chair of a committee within their portfolio or terms of reference, and only one supplementary question may be asked provided it is relevant to the original question. We haven't received any written notifications of questions for members appointed to serve on outside bodies. If anyone has any special questions to ask on the information items on the agenda, including the special urgency decisions, they should do this so at this point, as another opportunity will not be given when we reach those items. You don't. Can you show hands, please? Thank you. No, I don't. Thank you. Councillor Saxena, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will be positively my last question. My question is to the leader. Cabinet yesterday introduced another important strand of our cost of living programme, affecting terminally ill residents. Will the leader elaborate on what this will entail? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saxena, for your final question. Yeah, I'm sure you will agree with all of us. We're absolutely delighted to do this. And I also want to pay tribute to Councillor Hindle as well. We did come up with the idea as part of a comprehensive 1.8 million cost of living programme for the city. So basically, the decision we took yesterday will mean that any household in Preston, regardless of income, if a family member acquires a terminal illness, they'll no longer have to pay council tax. So we feel this is a huge step forward for compassion in this city, and it's been welcomed by end-of-life charities such as Marie Curie. We obviously need to monitor the costs because we need to make sure that it's something we can afford to do, but the principle of showing our compassion to those residents and families in that situation is something we should all be proud of in this chamber. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
You got a supplementary, Councillor Saxena? Thank you. Don't worry. Councillor Whittam, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not entirely sure who to ask this question of, Leader. It's about the proposed trams for Preston and Central Lancashire. A number of your councillors have been helping the network clearing the area at Gamble. And I received a request to meet with their directors recently, and there has been a post on social media twice now talking about £3 million being allocated towards that scheme. Is there any appetite within this council, within the Rural and Labour group, to look at a tram network for Preston? The plans are very ambitious. You probably have seen the flyers, etc. But there are two local lines which are potential, and Network Rail are keen to offload the existing cutting from the university through to Gamble as a start for 10. I make no comment on the other stuff, but I'm just asking the simple question: is there any appetite to look at this and take it any further? Thank you.
So I've been there as well. Amazing job they've done, the volunteers so far. The cash we set aside was a budget made by the Deepdale councillors to have something set aside to do something with that stretch that went through Deepdale that was in a dire state. Still needs a lot of work, to be fair, but it's far better than it was. It was, you know, a fly tipping hotspot, everything just going over the fences onto the old track. Some of the track's been removed. A lot of the fly tipping's been removed. Some of it probably needs some mechanical help at some point to really clear it properly. But as far as I'm concerned, and you know, that money I think is in like year 4 of our forecast. It's just there. I mean, it's real money. It's £3 million in our budget, but it's kind of symbolic too that we are willing to do something on that line at some point on the old line. But in my mind, it's not for trams. It's definitely not for trams. It's far more likely to be some sort of cycle or walking track or nature, you know, nature path. I don't believe trams are feasible personally on that line or quite possibly anywhere in Preston. But I'd like a better bus service for a kick-off.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Whitton?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Councillor Wise on could we have an update on all the regeneration projects in and around Preston, please?
Thank you, Councillor Crowe. First of all, I'll just give an update on the tram bridge. There is a rumour going around that's untrue that it's going to be open to the public before it's actually officially opened. That is untrue. When the official opening takes place, that's when the public will be able to walk across it. The date is not yet public. There will be a press release imminently, but it will be towards the end of May, so it's after the election. Also at the same time, the road surface on the road on South Ribble side will have been improved so that basically you can go across and not hurt yourself and whatever. I don't know how many people have gone to have a look, you know, from the park, from Abenham Park, but it looks amazing. And I hope that I'll be back to be at the opening. Otherwise, I'll be as a member of public in the park watching it. But yeah, it is very exciting and looking forward to the opening. The vault, they've got an amazing 1,300 young children and young people signed up, which is absolutely fantastic. It's not yet open officially, but it is, they're doing operational testing and stuff. So obviously to do operational testing, you've got to have young people going in. And I don't know how many people have seen it, but it is the most amazing building. And it is, you know, it is fantastic. And we need to make sure that children from wherever they live in the city can actually access it because it is absolutely fantastic. The parks really have now gone over to Freddie because, you know, my role in terms of the funding has now come to an end, but I know that work is either has started or is imminently starting, and I think it started on Moore Park and is about to start on Waverley Park, and I think has already finished on Grange Park. In terms of the cycle lane on Queen Street and Avenham Lane, we're still negotiating the contract, but that should be soon. And actually, as the officer said to me, it's not just about the cycle lane, it's a public realm thing because there will be new trees. So it's going to be an amazing facility, and particularly for cyclists, you know, might come across the tram bridge or go across the tram bridge one way and be able to come into town and what have you. So it is going to be excellent. Amounderness House, pre-contract or whatever it's called, some work has already started, and the main contract will be entered into, the design and build contract will be entered into by the end of this month. And so that is not going to be open for some considerable time, but obviously is going to be really exciting. And also the other public realm work will be starting imminently as well. So thank you for the question. Thank you.
Have you got a supplementary, Councillor Crowe? Thank you. Councillor Landless, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, my question is to Councillor Bailey. Some time ago, during last year, some play equipment was removed from Goosner Village Green because it was deemed unsafe, which is all fair enough. But at the same time, the publicity sort of indicated that the new play equipment would be in place before Easter or by the Easter holidays. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened, and many little ones have missed out on enjoying the park over the Easter holidays and what have you. My question is really quite simple. Can he or find out an update on when the park is going to be finished? Because, you know, there's been a lot of work, I know, in all sorts of other parks or play areas throughout the city, but I just feel that Goosner has been forgotten about. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think on a weekly basis, we have an officer that goes around and checks the play equipment on all the parks across Preston to make sure that they're safe, so that obviously young people, children, etc., can play on them safely. Obviously, we do, if possible, if we need to make a very quick repair, we then do it there and then and spend, you know, a little bit of money either sort of repainting it, making sure it's safe. If then a piece of equipment has gone beyond that repair, then, you know, for the safety of the children, obviously young people using that park, then we do remove that piece of equipment. So obviously that would have been the case in Goosner. Now, in terms of specifically Goosner Park itself, at Cabinet yesterday, we did approve £75,000, which was funded by Whittingham Parish Council. And I think it was to do with spending for teen play equipment on that particular green. In terms of specifically Goosner Green, in terms of replacing the other equipment that's lost, I'll need to check up on that, and I can check up on that and get back to you in terms of timescales. But, you know, literally as of yesterday, we did approve that funding from Whittingham Parish Council to be able to spend that money. So hopefully that'll be up and running soon, and then I'll get back to you regarding the specifics of Goosner Green. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Landless? Okay, thank you. Councillor Morgan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like Councillor Saxena, this will be my last question in chambers. And this is for Councillor Bailey. If you could give us, please, an update about the new calendar distribution for the new changes of the bin collections, please.
Thank you. Just before I answer the question as well, obviously, just want to thank the Mayor as well for your premiership for this year as well. So, and I think you've conducted yourself as a great ambassador for the city. So, obviously, I'm hoping I didn't really want to sort of have a question regarding food waste and obviously the round changes, but as it is with local government and councils and change, when we have big changes like we've got, and this is, you know, the biggest change in terms of waste management in the sort of the past 15 years potentially, including the round changes, we knew there were going to be hiccups, but we have sort of come upon quite a big hiccup. So some of you who have a lot of spare time may have gone on Facebook and looked through social media. The last week, Preston City Council posted a post about saying hopefully everyone's received their calendars, talking about the changes to the rounds, etc. And just as we'd expect, there's a lot of people commenting saying, well, I've not got mine, I'm from this. But there's an unusual amount of comments from this. So what we did was we contacted the company that we used to provide this sort of citywide delivery service, and they were adamant that they delivered it. But then when when Mark and his team then went around even asking council members of staff, waste from different parts of the city, it seemed overwhelming that not everyone had received theirs. So, you know, when it's just over 1 week to go before these round changes, we want to be as smooth as possible. What do? We couldn't go out and to tender for another company. We didn't trust this company again because we don't think they delivered it all. So in the future, we're going to look into that and see what we can do. But in the short term, I need to pay tribute to the waste management team, because what we've done is we've reprinted a lot of those calendars ourselves, and we've got a lot of our staff, our Preston City Council staff, to work overtime to do it when they can on their rounds, etc., to try and deliver to large areas across Preston where we think that those leaflets have not been delivered. So if you've seen a post where someone said, oh, I'm in Ribbleton, at this part of Ribbleton, and I've not received mine, or I'm part of Fulham and I've not received mine, we then basically blanketed that whole area to try and ensure that all areas have been notified of those changes. So unfortunately, it's been a bit of a hiccup. You know, it's one that we kind of didn't really expect. You know, you pay for a private company to be able to deliver these leaflets, and you sort of, you know, I guess you place that trust in them, and they've obviously let us down. So, you know, I just want to pay credit to the waste management team and obviously the staff members who've worked overtime to make sure that as many people as possible are aware of those round changes that are coming in next Monday. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. If you got a supplementary, Councillor Morgan, I'd just like to say, Councillor Bailey, we haven't got ours either, and neither of my neighbours. just so you know, Caesar's subject has come up, and thank you for your kind comments. Councillor Thompson, please.
On. There you go, right, it's on, yes, sorry. Yeah, this is a timely question. I would expect that all campaigning would be carried out with honesty, integrity and decency. And it's come to my attention that one particular candidate has received some very worrying online criticism. It is extremely anti-Semitic, it is extremely misogynistic, and it is basically abusive. And I have never seen anything like it. Now, this seems to have hit various people. It's not across the board, but it's certainly some people have been picked on. And I would you join me in condemning this sort of behaviour from whether the general public or other political parties, and condemn this, because this not only affects politics in general, it affects people's personal lives. And I would hope that you could join me in condemning this sort of behaviour.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm not seeing the particular instance you're referring to, but yeah, any kind of hate, anti-Semitism, racism, we roundly condemn. On our side, one of our members has been subject to some pretty horrible online abuse already that is misogynistic, you know. So at the moment, things are very polarised in this country. That is obvious, but people who are standing for public office with the best of intentions, whoever they are, they should not be harassed or bullied or anything else, right? We should be scrutinised, we should be challenged, people should protest against politicians, that's healthy, but when you get into levels of hatred and discrimination and racism and sexism and everything else, that is completely wrong. So I think we need to potentially, through you, Madam Mayor, and the Chief Executive, look at each individual instance in this campaign. Things are pretty calm at the moment, but as we get closer to polling day, like we saw last May in the LCC elections, potentially we're going to get into a situation where things are going to get pretty intense. So I'll raise the instance with the Chief Exec afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I ask if you've got a supplementary question, just a reminder, there is the candidates and agents meeting tonight at 6 o'clock here, and the police will be in attendance. And I think most of us have had the briefing on Operation Forward, which is where we need to raise these concerns directly, and then they can be dealt with. Councillor Thompson, first of all, do you have a supplementary?
No, Madam Mayor, that was it. I just thank the leader for his support in this. Thank you. We've got to keep a united front on this sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gregg, did you want to come in? Oh, unrelated. Right, I'll bring you in a minute then. Thank you. Councillor Green, I've got you next on the list, please.
Thank you. I think it's for Councillor Rawlinson. I think many of us probably were quite surprised and sad to see the closure of the Mad Giant Food Hall already within a year. I was wondering if we've got an update regarding the reopening, what we're going to try and do to keep it open long term and increase footfall. As I was surprised, as I read, sorry, it's supposed to be open till 11 PM most days, but I've had some residents saying they were finding it closing early. But yeah, mainly I saw it's going to reopen. So if we've got an update, please. Thank you.
So as far as I know, they've not closed for good. They said they were closing for a period and reopening with some new units. But obviously we'll wait and see on that. They haven't, you know, relinquished the lease at all. So we think the model can work. But unfortunately, one of the most popular units in there did leave after not too long, and it was very popular. So it's unfortunate, but hopefully they can turn it around. But if not, we have a fully fitted out unit that can be let anyway. It's, you know, the place is virtually full anyway, so it's going really well.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Green?
Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm sure we can all agree we want it to do well, definitely. I did see the final unit, touching upon what you were saying there as well, final unit of Animate is again advertised to be filled. Do we have any expected time frame that we hope it to be filled, or how we'll try and attract a new business to that one as well? Thank you.
So the original idea for that unit was like some sort of gaming place or laser quest or, you know, escape room, something like that. That was the idea. We haven't been able to fill it as such. There has been interest from other parties for different uses, and we've considered those, but at the moment it remains open to let.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My questions to Councillor Bailey. I'll just sort of throw another waste removal one at you. So around my area, we did get our cards. We also got a card saying put your black bin out on Thursday, but they also came that Tuesday, emptied the black bins, and then came again on Thursday to empty the bins again. So I'm just wondering, is there like a double up as well, and the crew's just working super hard? Thank you.
It's got a lot of
I was going to say maybe the area should pay double council tax then if they're getting double the bins collected. I'm only joking for the record. So obviously these round changes are going to take place next Monday. I don't know why they were maybe collecting then. I can find out for you. But in terms of the actual round changes, some of the changes you might see is that 2 bin lorries might come together rather than say one. So sometimes when we go around, say if it's on the week where you have your recyclables, it's usually sometimes one lorry comes around and you collect the cardboard and you know your metals and plastics, etc. But actually, it's going to be more efficient to do longer rounds if we have 2 bin refuse vehicles collecting, one that just does cardboard and the other one just does your recyclable plastics, etc. And obviously because of the times of that, they might not be coming sort of in tandem, they might be coming at different times. So that means going forward as of the next Monday, we would encourage that residents get their bins out the night beforehand, because you know the times won't be changing, because obviously all the routes are going to be slightly different. So not all the routes, the majority of the routes are going to be slightly different. So therefore, and then as well, the further change will be if one bin's being collected, don't report it just yet, because a bin refuse vehicle might be coming at a later time in that day. So it will be working something in a tandem. We just think it'd be more efficient. We'll be able to collect more waste. I asked the bin men, and they're mapping up. Is that right? Is that meant? Mopping up. I'm so sorry, I've destroyed that joke. Sorry. So yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, ultimately, if you had your bins collected twice in the same week, you're very lucky.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Gregg? No, thank you. Nice to see you back, Councillor Hull. Welcome back. Item 6, Mutual Bank is the next item. Councillor Wise, are you moving this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to move this report. I think the North West Mutual Bank is a really exciting endeavour and will be good for Preston residents and for local small, medium enterprises, including charities and CICs. Unlike in Germany, our banking system is dominated by the big banks, whose aim is to make profits for their shareholders. To do this, the big banks have closed branches and made it more difficult for SMEs to get loans for their businesses. In the last decade, the number of branches has dropped in this country by 70%. Lending to SMEs has dropped by half. An SME is an organisation with 250 or less employees, and the vast majority of businesses in Preston are SMEs. And if we want growth in this country, we need to be supporting the small and medium enterprises. Barclays Bank only has 200 branches in the UK. And yet the aim of the North West Mutual is to have 60 branches within the first 10 years. The aim is for 95% of the population that they'll be within a 25-minute drive of a branch. Not only have bank branches been closing, but so have the number of ATMs where one can get cash. What is really disturbing about this now is that 1 in 3 ATMs in poorer areas charge for a cash withdrawal, whereas in better off areas, it's only 1 in 6 that charge. It is poorer people who rely on cash. It's much easier to budget using cash than budgeting online. Many of our residents live hand to mouth every month and rely on cash to help them budget their income and outgoings every month. Setting up a new bank is a difficult and lengthy process because obviously the regulators, the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulatory Authority want to ensure that risk is minimised. It is a fact that most new banks which have been set up in the past decade have been digital banks like Monzo and Starling. Most people using these digital banks don't have their salaries paid into those accounts, but use it for savings. As the digital banks don't have a record of their customers' income and outgoings, they're very limited in their lending and often charge a higher interest rate as they've nothing to judge a customer on. The latest new bank in the UK is Revolut, which is a global bank and has recently been fined £10 million by Italy's competition authority after the watchdog found the London-based fintech giant had misled customers over fees and terms of its investment products. And that's not their first fine. So it's good that the regulators are very thorough. The North West Mutual has submitted 600 pages of documentation and are expected in the very near future to be asked by the Bank of England to submit their formal licence application. The North West Mutual, as was seen at Overview and Scrutiny earlier this week, have people who know the banking system well. One of their advisors, who will become a non-executive director, used to work for the regulator and is also a senior advisor to the European Investment Bank. The North West Mutual Bank is a very different type of bank. It's a mutual with each member only having one vote. So there's no big shareholders who can take it over. Its ethos will not be about maximising profits for shareholders. Once it does start to make a profit, everyone with an account will benefit from dividends. And they actually have said that they hope to be the bank that makes the least profit. Obviously, they do need to make a profit. A lot has been said about the fact that the bank will charge for the current account, £5 a month for personal accounts. As long as people have at least £1,000 going into the bank each month and have an average balance of £250 a month, the interest they receive will offset the £5 fee. So that's not dividends, that's interest. The bank can't change the business model they've submitted to the regulator at this stage, but they will look in the future what they can do for members below a certain income level, e.g. perhaps having a lower fee or no fee. The same is the case for businesses. They will pay a £10 per month current account fee, which is quite common for business accounts. But again, they will look at this for charities and community interest companies. But all of this will depend on the bank becoming profitable.
1 minute, Councillor Wise.
An average balance of £500 per month for businesses will offset the £10 fee. Another great thing about the North West Mutual is that all the lending will be to people and businesses in the North West, which will keep money circulating in the local economy. Most building societies, even northern ones, provide mortgages wherever the person lives. The council is supporting the North West Mutual is completely in line with community wealth building and the development of an inclusive economy in which ownership of wealth is shared and income and profit is recirculated within the local economy. The first branch will be here in Preston, opening in the first quarter of 2027, and their head office will be here. And they also hope to have longer opening hours to suit customers who work 9 to 5. So a great pleasure in recommending 2.1 in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. Is that seconded? Are you seconding, Councillor Brown?
Yes, formally seconded, reserve my right to speak, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to this? Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Potter, I'll put you first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you on a wonderful year in your in the chair. So thank you very much for all your time. Yeah, no, it was a really interesting meeting at Overview and Scrutiny on Tuesday, but we have to address the fact that we shouldn't be debating this at all today. There are long-standing rules in PERDA that you do not make and initiate long-term, highly controversial decisions, and it is absolutely ridiculous that this Labour group is pushing this through. There is zero justification and zero time need that we should be having to make a decision to spend £750,000 during an election period. It is outrageous. You know it's wrong, and if other parties had done it, you'd be in uproar. And actually, what it does to us is cast a political doubt in your good intentions behind this bank. But ONS was interesting. You know, I'd like to thank Valerie, Councillor Brown, the gentleman from the bank for coming up and talking to us. But there were still massive outstanding issues that haven't been addressed. For example, we've been hearing about this bank for a very long time. How many investors outside of this council and outside of a non-executive director in the mutual bank have we had in all that time? None. Absolutely zero. We have not got a single investor in. But don't worry, I'm sure the Labour group is all across all these details. This is something they care passionately about. It's something they've talked about for a very long time. Every single detail will have been scrutinised and made sure it's exactly where it needs to be, with the exception of Councillor Wise not knowing how much it was going to cost at ONS. She had no idea that this would cost £2 million once you factor in we have to pay back that debt. She had to ask officers for clarification for how much this would cost. And this is the cabinet member responsible for this decision. It all leads to the fact this feels rushed. You've rushed it in the election period, you're rushing it through. And you've got, like I say, no outside investors have come into it. You know, Councillor Brown hasn't been able to convince any Labour councils in Lancashire to do it. He sits on Lancashire County Council, not been able to convince his own group to invest in it. And Valerie has talked about, and she did at ONS, she talked about the risk is very small. Well, actually, that's not true. Page 43 of your report, it says in black and white, this is a high-risk adventure. This is very likely we will get zero back from this, and every penny we put in will be lost. And we have to think about, and I asked the people at the bank, and I'll ask all Labour members now who are probably going to vote for this, what would you do with £2 million in your wards? Because that is the choice you're having. We're going to have a debate a little bit later on about whether we can spend money helping some families with disabled children extra, and yet you're spending £750,000 today on a bank that might not even happen. And let's be absolutely honest, this bank, it is extremely high risk. You've had zero outside investors so far. And if you get to the 5 million, you would have just 12 months to get another £4 million or the whole thing collapses. And I asked the banking guys, can you understand why people might be sceptical that having raised virtually nothing, you are suddenly going to be able to raise 9 million? And that's just to get out of the restricted bit. It's 30 million to start off with. I asked about guarantees. And I was going to say, the gentlemen I think there are probably in it for the right reason. This is not a stain on their character. But I asked, what guarantees are there that we will have the headquarters in Preston? Said, oh, well, you guys were first, and we're saying it now, we will have the HQ in Preston. They weren't prepared to put that down in written form. We have to believe them at their word when they could change. And I said, what if suddenly a different authority puts in 20 million compared to our 1 million? Would that change it? And they say, oh, no, of course. But there's no guarantee they won't. And there'd be a lot of pressure on that authority if some authority puts in 20 million compared to our 1, that they wouldn't have more investment going into that area than ours. And a really crucial point going forward, and I left it right to the end of ONS, because we're going to talk about choices. We're going to talk about choices, whether we help regarding Councillor Duke's motion later about disabled children. You're spending £750,000. And I asked the chaps from the bank, I said, what happens if we don't invest today? What happens? Is this idea which you care passionately about, and I understand you care passionately about, what if Preston Council today says no? What if we decide actually we want to spend money on our parks or on our whatever other things we want to spend on in the city, or because we have, you know, we don't have infinite levels of money as a council like no council does. What if we decide to use our money for something else? They said the bank would still go ahead even if we didn't put the money in
1 minute,
anyway.
councillor Potter.
Thank you, sir. So this is a bank this is an idea that's been rushed through. They're not over the detail of it. There's no guarantee it will have any benefit. We talked about the fee paying part of it. So now they're saying, oh yes, maybe actually we might want to change it. After they've already gone to the regulator saying they would do a fee paying bank, they are absolutely, it might be reckless with our money, and it is not good enough. And I think, and the people of Preston will think, do you want to spend £2 million on a speculative bank, or do you want it on our parks and on anything else that we could do in the city? I know exactly where they would be. It's a disgrace this has come to this council, and I think you guys will really regret going forward, because this isn't going to solve the inherent problems with British banking, because there is problems. This is not a fix. What you are doing is wasting Preston taxpayers' money, and we should vote against.
Councillor Guise, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Council will recall that when we last debated this subject, we were all treated to Councillor Bailey casting himself as Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life, and juxtaposing himself with the evil and avaricious Mr. Potter. And this has prompted me to wonder if there isn't a better or more appropriate festive film available which would offer a more realistic metaphor for the project under discussion. And I think there is, but this has led me into a moral quandary. Because although it undoubtedly describes the likely fate of the proposed investment very accurately, it naturally raises the hugely controversial and politically vexed question of whether Die Hard is in fact a Christmas movie. Naturally, as someone who cherishes the democratic process, I would never be so disrespectful as to ask the council to decide such a sensitive question as that during a pre-election period in violation of our usual norms. What sort of character would do such a thing? So leaving that to one side, in all seriousness, I believe the motivation for this proposal is very muddled. In places, and Councillor Wise has done the same thing verbally, the report suggests that it will improve access to cash. But if this is the aim, then this report is using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. If we identify places in Preston that are not well served by cash machines, the City Council should be working with the link network to enable more cash machines. For example, the council is a substantial property holder. We could investigate if any City Council properties could host a cash machine in a helpful spot, or we could explore subsidising some in suitable locations. But in any case, the fact that a new bank will exist cannot in any way guarantee that a new cash machine will sprout up in exactly the place where we want it. There's also some wonderfully circular logic in this report. For example, at 3.7.2, when setting out how risks have been managed, it says that progress through the regulatory process and expected transition to full application reduces authorization risk. Now, that does not actually describe a risk mitigation measure. All it observes is that the risky event, that is, the decision as to whether the bank gets regulatory consent or not, is currently in the future, and eventually it will be in the past. And if we are lucky, everything will have gone well. So at that point, the risk won't be there anymore. In other words, risk is mitigated here by the mechanism of the risky event coming towards you in time and you sitting there and waiting for it and hoping for the best. To make this more vivid, if we imagine, because this is rather a dry subject perhaps, If we imagine the logic of this report applied to matters of sexual health, what this advocates is not using a physical prophylactic, but simply crossing your fingers and imagining the sigh of relief that you will breathe when it becomes apparent that monthly rhythms are continuing as normal. And I encourage everyone to adopt a more robust approach to risk management than this. The report assures us that the bank is actively progressing its capital raising strategy. However, aside from one non-executive director of the bank itself, Preston City Council is the only outside existing investor. The report talks about due diligence being done on a planned investment, although we are given no idea of how much this may be. And it says the bank is getting help from a quote specialist third party and claims that this mitigates funding risk. But again, the funding risk will only actually be mitigated when you have secured some funding. The report discusses a reduction in recent years of lending to SMEs. And in our group discussion there about the item, there was a strong
One
sentiment.
minute, councillor, guys.
Thank you very much. That the banking sector has become too risk averse when it comes to loaning to small entrepreneurs. However, improving that situation must logically mean that a lender will take on more risk when it comes to lending than the existing banks currently are. And yet the report is at pains to note how risk averse the new bank will be, saying at paragraph 3.3.1 that it will adopt a prudent and conservative approach to risk, and at paragraph 3.7.3 about the bank's conservative business model. So if the bank is so successful in mitigating risk in its lending, if the bank is so prudent and so conservative, it will only make loans to those who would get them anyway, and it will nullify this public rationale for investing public money in it in the first place. A frank report would acknowledge that.
Thank you, councillor. Time up, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Oh, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to request a named vote, please.
A named vote. Thank you. A named vote. Councillor Whittam, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fortunately for the assembled throng, I will keep this very brief. First of all, thank you, Valerie, for the presentation, and thank you for the report. It's all wildly interesting stuff. Preston, unfortunately, has a history of an experience of banks like this. In fact, the city has got a street named after the family that used to run it, and it went bust. The only saving grace that I can see over and above what a post office would offer us is that the branch, you may have a branch in Preston that you might be able to guarantee will stay open. The politics is about choice. This is Labour's choice to push this. To me, this has nothing to do with the core business of a council, a city council. 750,000, 2 million, whatever it is, that's a big sum that could be spent elsewhere, and it should be spent elsewhere. So I'm sorry, it's not something that I can support. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Whittam. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll keep this fairly brief. As you know, I think my position on it is has always been the same, is that I think it is a high risk project to get involved in. I think it is probably not what I would say a Preston City Council should be involved in. The only thing that I can say is that if it goes wrong, then the people in charge of it and running it will have to face the consequences. If it works, you will no doubt take crown as well. So, but I would like to also just say thank you to Valerie for your speech, because in this we found out that you like small businesses, cash, and you're a bit anti-globalist there at one point. So I would like to probably propose that you replace Mrs. Reeves at the earliest possible moment. Thank you. So that's all I've got to say on it. Thank you.
Councillor Little, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep mine short and sweet as well. We had a big discussion on this last time And I didn't get a chance to come back on comments that were made across the room that were pretty strong. And they were saying they made applications with their small businesses for funding and they were denied. And what I would have said if I could have come back and asked is, will this bank be any different? If you have a small, medium-sized business in Preston, will there be any preferential treatment in the decision to lend money to that small or medium business? The short answer will be no. The FCA govern the lending criteria across the whole financial sector. If there is a preferential thing, it would just increase the risk. The reason why there was no money lended last time was because the risk was high and the bank or whoever you were going to decided that was not the case. You mentioned as well before, online banks, i.e. Monzo, offer more interest because they don't have their salary coming into that account. I don't know. It's quite simple when you make an application for finance to send bank statements. It's a normal thing. So I don't think that's correct. If there is so, I'd ask just for some proof. On that, I don't see how this particular bank is going to be a benefit to residents, small, medium businesses either. And then I'm sort of left asking a question. Why now? Why now? Well, I mean, obviously this time of year, that's fine. But why has it been on the books for Labour for the past umpteen years and is being pushed through now when there's nobody else coming forward with funding? Why are we taking a gamble with a high risk investment when, as everybody else is seeing, that money can be spent elsewhere? Why? Why wouldn't we just wait and see? Why wouldn't we wait and see to see if this bank comes off, gets past the next stage, gets a little bit closer to the finish line, and then say, do you know what? We'll come in. Because it looks like it can work at that stage. Right now, I don't see any benefit. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I'd love to say that this money should be spent elsewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hull, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief again. The job of Her Majesty's loyal opposition is to oppose, I think it's already said. And that's very effectively being done by the people who have spoken. Although for the Liberals, I have to say that Mr. Potter started by saying that this thing is being rushed. And Mr. Little ended by saying that we should take much more time over it. So, as is ever is the case, the Liberals are the party with no, only ours dash with no sense of direction. But I won't say very much. I think we should move to the vote as soon as possible, Mr. Mayor. We all have other things to do, and as you know, I've not been very well myself. So I'll end there. But I urge people to think on the fact that somebody touched on the fact that the Pedders originally owned the bank, which is now the 12 Tellers. The Pedders family have a road named after them, Pedders Lane, which is in my ward in Ashton, Mr. Mayor. I just remind people that the Pedders made vast amounts of money out of banking, which, if the opportunity is taken and we strike while the iron is hot, Preston City Council possibly could do on its successors in the future. Thank you. I urge people to vote for the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hull. I am Madam Mayor, and we will have Madam Mayor next year as well. So you better get it right next year for my colleague here. Councillor Henshaw, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple of quick points. We're not initiating anything now, are we? A few people have said we've been discussing this for the last 5 years, so that's why it's come now. But we're not initiating anything. This has been talked about for the last 5 years. I remember standing in this chamber 5 years ago. My bank, as an SME, had just told me they were going to charge me 25% interest on anything I was overdrawn. And I thought, you know, we need a bank like this. So I will be supporting this. So I did just want to say that. And then I just had a clarification question, Valerie. Thank you for your presentation. Did I hear you right? If you've got £250 in your current account, and as long as you've got £1,000 a month going in, you will receive interest. No other bank gives you interest on a current account. So I just wanted to check that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jewell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A lot of really good points have been made, so I won't go back over them, but there are just a few additional points I would like to make. Because whenever I approach something like this, I think, what's the competitive advantage of what we are trying to achieve here with this mutual bank? I don't think any of us are against the overall bold objectives of what you're trying to achieve. the question comes, is this the most suitable use of Preston taxpayers' money? That is the central question we have to put. And I must admit, I would also appreciate the clarification that Councillor Henshaw has requested, because I had understood there was going to be a fee to have an account with this mutual bank. I think Councillor Wise has clarified that as long as you have more than £1,000 a month into the account, I'm not entirely sure if you get interest or you're just not charged the £5 fee. But coming back to the issue of competitive advantage, there are other mutuals already on our high street. Nationwide are a mutual bank building society. I'm fairly sure Yorkshire Building Society are also a mutual. I happen to know you can opt for the option of paying for accounts with certain benefits, but you do not have to pay to have an account with those building societies. And so when I then hear the arguments around that this is to help people who can't normally get access to banks on particularly low income. However, if you've got less than £1,000 a month, you have to pay £5 a month. That doesn't add up to me at all. Yet again, the poorest in our society have to pay the most. And Councillor Potter put forward a challenge to us all in terms of what would we do with this £2 million? Bearing in mind, we're putting in 750,000 today. That is the decision today that £750,000 of Preston taxpayers' money is going to be thrown into the centre for this bank after our decision today. That's what this meeting is about. And that to pay that money, you have to pay interest. So you're talking about £2 million in total of Preston taxpayers' money. There's or thereabouts. It's more than £750,000. Then what would I like to see with that 2 million across Preston? You know what? We could do so much. We could do so much more with our parks. We could invest in Ashton Park, in Haslam Park, in the west side of Preston that for too long has been neglected by this administration. That's what we would love to see. How much more we could do. So when I come back to what is the competitive advantage of this mutual bank, I cannot honestly say or see what the benefits are. And that's why I will be voting against this, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson, please.
Thank you. I can accept comparisons of Freddie Bailey with Jimmy Stewart. You know, they're both very debonair and tall. I can't accept comparisons of Councillor Wise with John McClane or Bruce Willis. I'm not having that. But the Liberal Democrats are deliberately misrepresenting aspects of this completely. Either they just don't understand or they're doing it on purpose. I suspect the second one. So they don't understand risk. There's lots of things this council does that are high risk. Having an IT system is high risk. We've got to have one. What you do is you mitigate those risks by managing it properly. And this bank is being set up properly by experts. So the risk is not high, simply because of that. It's what we do every day at this council. The £1 million, trying to say it's £2 million, that's how it has to be shown in the report on paper. That's the accountants. It will not pan out that way. It will not cost £2 million. It's highly unlikely. Unless we hand over £1 million and it goes bust the day after and we've lost all that money and there's nowhere to go. It just won't work out that way. It's simply not true. Saying that you could spend that money on parks and DFG, I suppose you could, but we are already putting more money into parks. This group won 14 million quid off the government for parks. We've recreated the parks capital pot year on year. We're hiring staff to deliver it. So we're already doing that. We've put an extra £500,000 in for DFG, which is somehow missing from the notice of motion. Magically missing, not even mentioned at all, that this Labour group is putting extra money into DFG. Absolutely shocking. So what's different about this bank? To answer Councillor Jewell, we've got mutuals on the high street, quite right. This bank will have a unique ethos, will exist to serve people in the northwest. of England, and it will lend to different people who can't get lending from the mainstream banks. I promise you that. So when Councillor Wise was speaking, if you looked at the Liberal Democrats, they were around the room. They couldn't have cared less what Valerie had said. She could have said anything. You wouldn't have even noticed. You are ideologically opposed to this project. You believe that the people of Preston should be left at the mercy of exploitative capitalist practices. You oppose council housing. You supported austerity. You are hard right. You are a hard right group, a hard right party. And you do not care a jot about people struggling out there.
Councillor Peake, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, deliberate misrepresentation. And you said, Councillor Rawlinson said, we didn't support this bank on principle. At the first vote relating to this bank, where did the Liberal Democrats vote? They voted with Labour. That's for one. We've now seen what the risks are. At any rate, Councillor Wise, did you actually do any calculations relating to interest rates that would offset the monthly fee? Did anybody on that side of the council do any calculations on the required interest rates to offset the £5 monthly fee for personal bank accounts? No, I did. With £1,000 going in on the first of the month, coming out on the last day of the month, so the average balance would be £1,000, to get an offset interest rate to offset the £5 fee, you would require a 5.7% interest rate. If you degraded the money in the account over 1 month, with therefore an average of £500 in the account over 1 month, you would require an interest rate of 10.6% to get the £5 to cover the £5 fee. So your idea is not feasible. If somebody can produce, somebody can point me at a bank that will pay me 5.7% or 10.7%, 10.6% per month, or sorry, an annual one, but paid compound on a daily basis, then I would like to know about it, because I will put some of my money in there. Blimey. Who else? Current personal accounts in other banks do pay interest. Maybe not business accounts, I don't know. I haven't got a business. But I have personal accounts in other banks that do pay interest on the current account. I also have an account in a bank that doesn't pay interest on my current account, but there are savings options available with that current account. So you can get interest. I'm opposed to this idea because it is high risk, because the money could be used better elsewhere. But what gets me most is the fact that people on the benches over there have not done decent calculations to work out what the hell will be going on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Brown, you reserve the right to speak as a seconder.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been an interesting debate. This is not a controversial decision. It's not a controversial decision at all. If we just deal with the issue of PERDA, it's a Liberal Democrat group that bring in a DFG motion within PERDA. We've been trying to pursue this bank for a number of years, and it's something we wanted to do for the long term. I do not believe it reaches the PERDA requirements, but if you're so worried about that, why are you bringing something new and trying to take political capital out of it today? Obviously, what we want to do on this side of the chamber is we want to tackle injustice and deal with what is a systemic issue with our current banking system. If you go back 20 years, you remember when there was a financial crash and we were all told we couldn't get our money out. it was not cooperative banks that were doing that, it was the large global banks. And we've seen austerity that came from that. So this is a model that's based around some of the highly successful way we do banking through cooperatives in Europe. That's the reality of what we're doing there. And at the scrutiny committee meeting, you had a former chief executive of a building society there. You had senior people who've worked in the global banking industry who actually want to have a more ethical alternative to support communities. And you guys as local politicians actually think you know more about banking than these people do. You know, how well are you qualified to make those representations? Have you run a bank? Have you managed a bank? There's also been a lot of talk about films as well. So we've obviously had Banker Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life. We've had Die Hard. But I remember growing up and watching Dad's Army, Captain Mainwaring. And that was the kind of banking that we had back then. You know, you actually had, even though it was obviously a comedy, but there was a lot in it around the time back in the 40s, 50s and 60s. You actually had a bank manager who actually run the bank. You'd actually go in and meet the bank manager. You could have a conversation with it. You know, you'd actually have a personal relationship. I mean, you guys are like arrogant liberals who'd be protesting against Captain Mainwaring in Dad's Army. That's the way that you're behaving if we're talking about films. But we're very proud that we're doing this as a Labour Council. It is going to be a success. You've really overstated the risk. This council's invested 120 million in regeneration. The failures that we've had, like the Guildhall, like the hotel, these have been private sector-led failures. They've not been council failures or cooperative failures that we're trying to pursue today. This idea that we actually could put 2 million into our parks is absolute nonsense. This is an investment, it'll get a return. And come on, I mean, if you can't make money out of banking, you've got to be pretty stupid. You know, I mean, how much money do bankers make? You know, it's going to be a good investment for our community. But the reality is, and I mentioned this at the scrutiny committee, we've got a dreadful banking system based around greed and wealth extraction. If you're someone from an African background, in Preston or Lancashire who runs a small business, the large banks were 4 times more likely to refuse you a loan. We have hairdressers, plumbers that want to go to banks and get a £3,000 or £4,000 loan. They're refused consistently. 60% of small businesses have their loans refused. You know, we have a situation where we have tens of billions of tax avoidance and evasion of our money from the current banking system. You know, this is a direct investment in Preston. You guys are saying no to 200 jobs, which it will create. You're saying no to bank branches. We have places in the northwest where every single constituency has lost a bank branch, which is something that we didn't have, you know, even 20 or 30 years ago. So, I mean, Martin's right. You guys are the ideologue. And I don't want to get into election because it's purred, but we seem to have a very big gap between a sensible, radical Labour Council that's want to tackle injustice and inequalities and support local businesses and charities that the mainstream banking won't lend to, unless we'll off residents who don't have access to mainstream banking. And yourself, the Conservatives and Reform, who seem to have a very neoliberal Thatcherite approach. It's that kind of economics that's caused devastation in communities like Preston for decades. And you guys are way to the right of most Liberals that I meet across the country. I think you should either be Tories or Reform guys yourself with the economics that you have, to be honest. So obviously, this is the right time to invest. We do have at least one new investor and potentially more in the pipeline. And there's conversations with the big business, the British Business Bank. We expect the first branch to be on the high street in the next 12 months. We expect the provisional license soon. And this is a huge opportunity for Preston. We on this side of the chamber want to change things. We want to change things for our communities. We want to tackle deprivation. We want to support local businesses. We want to have the courage to tackle an economic system that's working against people, not
1
for
minute,
people.
Councillor Brown, please.
So we're proud to support this, and obviously very disappointed you guys aren't, but we're going to continue with this investment, and this bank will be amazing, creating jobs and community wealth for the people of Preston and beyond. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wise, I now bring you in to reply before we go to the main vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of the Purder question, as far as I'm concerned, in January 2025, we actually discussed this bank and invested the first £250,000. And I've been waiting for this report for several months. So it's just coincidental that it's actually happened this month, because we've been wanting to approve this further investment for quite a long time. In terms of the current account fee, well, I have to say, I got the figure from the chief executive, and actually I've just got my calculator out while Councillor Peake was speaking. So if you put £1,000 in a month, I mean, and say you weren't spending any of it, well, the 2%, just a second, before you laugh yourself silly, 2% of that is actually £20, but the 2% of the average of £250 is £5. And so that's how it actually repays what you would have been paying out. So in other words, say you invest £1,000, or your salary goes in or whatever, as long as you've got £250 in by the average of the month, then if you do 2% of that, that is £5. Okay. So, and as I say, I only got my calculator out when you spoke, but this is what I've had from the chief executive. And you talk about other mutuals nationwide. Their chief executive has a salary of £7 million. I think that's absolutely outrageous. The wage differential in the North West Mutual will be no more than 10 to 1. It's interesting that nationwide, their average wage is £12.64 per hour for a customer support coordinator. The North West Mutual will pay the real living wage, which is £13 something, I've forgotten, £13.20 I think now. So already you can see that, yeah, nationwide is a mutual, but it's not the sort of mutual that the North West Mutual is going to be. Their ethos is entirely different. And that's why I think it's important that we're supporting this. You're saying about not getting investment. What has been made very clear to us, and I've had numerous meetings with the bank, as has others here, that actually investors start to invest when a bank gets that restrictive license, because they know then that it's gone through all the regulatory requirements, you know, the 600-page document and whatever. They've been scrutinized. So why would somebody be, apart from us, obviously from a community wealth building point of view, but other investors be investing before that? And that's what's going to happen. But I'm confident that this bank's going to work. But if it didn't by any chance, but I mean, obviously the Bank of England is looking, it doesn't want to set up banks that are actually going to fail. It doesn't want to support that. That's why they go through such an extensive process. But I think that we will be getting our money back if on the dividend. But we were assured that actually, because John Potter asked the question about what if it does go belly up, and actually we would be getting our money back, because you asked about one of the people who's in the bank about whether his money's like getting preferential treatment, and he said no, it wasn't. And also what is happening at the moment in terms of the lending by most banks, in terms of small and medium enterprises, it's to three types of businesses, which you heard again, John Potter: farms, buy-to-let owners and care homes, all of which have assets. Very few other small and medium enterprises get lent money. The big thing about this is this will have a local branch manager who knows the local people, who knows the local economy, and actually isn't just determined by some algorithm that, you know, doesn't know exactly what the situation is. So I'm really confident that small and medium enterprises will be being lent the money. But obviously, yeah, they will look at it carefully. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, yeah, I think I've covered that point. So I hope that that it will be that the Chamber, I know you lot aren't going to, but I hope that our side is going to support this. I think this is a really exciting time, and I think this North West Mutual will become the bank of the future, and we'll find other areas following suit. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Madam Mayor, point of order, please.
Point of order. What point of order, Councillor Jewell?
So I just want to clarify a point that Councillor Wise has just made, because it's contrary. Well, it's contrary to the reports here And it's hugely
It's not a point
important
of order.
to
Right,
this
what is the
issue
point of order?
as to whether or not we get our money back.
No,
That is what was said. We would get our money back. Point of order, that is
that's not a
blatantly
point-
untrue.
That's not a point of order. That's just yes. I'm now going to hand over to the Chief Executive for the named vote, please.
Right, members, the name vote has been requested. Each name will be read out in alphabetical order as normal. Obviously, members will be aware they are voting on the North West Mutual report. So starting with Councillor Afzal, Councillor Atkins, Councillor Bailey, Councillor Bell, Councillor Brooks, Councillor Brown, Councillor Close, Councillor Coupland, Councillor Crowe, Councillor Darby, Councillor Desai, Councillor Duke, Councillor Green, Councillor Gregg, Councillor Guise, Councillor Henshaw, Councillor Hindle, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Hull, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Jewell, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Khan, Councillor Kulbaki, Councillor Landless, Councillor Little, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Napper, Councillor Patel, Councillor Peake, Councillor Potter, Councillor Raisbeck, Councillor Rawlinson, Councillor Rutter, Councillor Saxena, Councillor Sarwar, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Van Mierlo, Councillor Varty, Councillor Vora, Councillor Ward, Councillor Mr. Whittam, Councillor Mrs. Whittam,
Against.
Councillor Wise. Thank you, members.
Okay, so it's 25 for the motion, 21 against, so the report is carried. Right, right, calm down, everybody, please. Oh, goodbye, Councillor Hull. Item 7 is a report on the licensing service fees and charges for 26-27. Councillor Afzal, are you moving this report, please?
I am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report has been brought to Council to approve the updated discretionary licensing fees and charges for 2026 and 2027. It is set on a full cost recovery basis. Fees reflect a fundamental review of staff time, administration and enforcement costs. Statutory fees set nationally are unchanged and not included in this report. The key decisions today are outlined in 2.1 of the report to agree the licensing fees and charges as set out in Appendix A. The fees are to take effect from the 1st of May 2026, except the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Vehicle and Operators licences, which must be advertised and implemented in line with Local Government Act 1976 requirements. Just some of the key messages from this report I will outline. No profit is being made. All the fees are set strictly on a cost recovery basis in line with legislation. Each licensing regime is accounted for separately and there is no cross-subsidy between regimes. The review helps address licensing income underachievement in recent years, and fees for taxis compare favourably with neighbouring authorities, particularly for operators. Just a point to add to that also, Preston remains one of the lowest for driver licensing. Despite increases, Preston remains significantly cheaper than most neighbouring authorities. And the revised fees will help meet the 418,000 income target for 2026 and 2027, and will maintain the net cost of the general fund at 39,000. Therefore, I propose that Council agree this report today as set out in Appendix A. Thank you.
Is that seconded, please? Councillor Crowe, you're seconding it. Thank you. Are there any amendments to this report? Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Jewell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really appreciate what Councillor Afzal has put forward, but I do think there's an opportunity that's been missed here in reflecting something of what Preston really stands for. I mean, on our side, we talk about a greener, more caring, fairer Preston. How would that translate into our taxi and licensing policy and thus our fees? Well, we could promote, for example, more taxis adapted for disabled people. We could do something about those vehicles that are environmentally friendly and discourage the older cars. And all too often, when I'm driving around Preston, I see a taxi in front of me that I've seen many times in Preston, the same taxi that's registered from Wolverhampton. And I do acknowledge what Councillor Afzal has said, is that for our driver licence, 3-year driver licence, we are quite low to the immediate area. But that is at the very top end of what you can get from Wolverhampton. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make really is there's a real opportunity here for us to promote what we want to promote in Preston, and surely that is accessibility for disabled people, a more environmentally friendly Preston, a more caring Preston. And I think that's the opportunity that has been missed here. But Madam Mayor, we do note what has been put forward. Thank you very much, Councillor Afzal.
Councillor Henshaw, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your report, Councillor Afzal. Very interesting points, Mark. I was looking at this sort of last night. I was studying this, and I just had a few queries really. So it was the payment licenses that I was more interested in, the street cafes, where you've got that they didn't pay a fee this year, but next year they are going to pay a fee. You've then written NA as in not applicable for the change, but actually there is a change. If they're not paying anything one year and the next year they're paying 185 quid, then surely it's plus 185 quid and not NA. So, and that's, I don't know, I was just interested in that and wondered what you'd like to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't got any more speakers on this. So, Councillor Afzal, do you want to reply before we go to the vote, please?
Thank you.
Can I just, sorry, Councillor Crowe, you didn't want to say anything else, did you? You just seconded it. Yeah, sorry. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jewell, for some of the points that you have raised. And we recently at ONS went through some of those points with colleagues that are here today. We have, as a council, written to those authorities like Wolverhampton, Knowsley, stating the upset that we feel about seeing these taxis, particularly Uber taxis, which I think everybody is aware is a national problem. It's not just in Preston. Unfortunately, we can't stop them from coming here. However, like I said, we have written to them twice now as a council to state that we're not happy with what's happening and they need to tighten up their policies. You know, we have a robust policy here in Preston and we're very proud of that. And in terms of that covers safeguarding and the DBS checks that we have for the drivers. And we are working with private hirers as well on cabbies. And in addition to that, like you mentioned about the, sorry, what was the second part of your question that you had?
So I mentioned, I was just making some examples of opportunities missed, but there was accessibility for disabled, the environmental side as well. But I mean, the other aspect that you could add to that is actually promoting those taxi drivers that have been registered in Preston over and above everyone else. So there's a number of ideas and I just felt it was a little bit of a missed opportunity that would have been reflected within the price regime.
Thank you for reminding me. Again, we did discuss the accessibility issue at ONS, so that is something that we are working on already. So it's not been missed. We are aware of it and we are working on that. In terms of Councillor Henshaw's question regarding the street cafes and the licences, again, the fees reflect the administrative effort and the enforcement demands. In relation to the table, it refers to no extra charge on renewal. So that's why it's got the NA. And if there's any variations, there's no extra charge. But if you need any further points clarifying, I'd be happy to provide you with an update on that.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. So we will now move to the vote. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That report's carried. Thank you. Item 8 is a report on the Lancashire Local Government Reorganisation and Implementation Reserve and Assurance Framework. I think the leader's moving this, is Councillor Ollis, and we'll just wait for him to come back into the room. Need a break? You want me to take a break now? Okay. Councillor Brown, do you want to take a break now before you move this report, or do you want to do this report next? The local government reorganisation. Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Can we do it now? It's not going to take long.
Yep. You're moving the report, sorry, you're moving the report on the local government reorganisation, implementation, reserve and assurance framework. I understand. Thank you.
Sorry for a call of nature, Madam Mayor.
No,
You get a
don't
bit
worry.
older, you can't avoid that sometimes. Right, so this isn't too difficult. So the council agreed to set aside 1 million towards the transition cost of LGI on the October 25 mid-year financial strategy. This is basically setting up a reserve to move us towards the local government reorganisation. £30 million is needed to transfer all the councils over to unitarisation, which is going to begin very soon. So May 27, we'll have the new unitary councils, we'll have new politicians within the unitary councils. So as you can imagine, that will be a lot of work because government are telling us that we must have these unitary councils, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 2, whatever, transferred over by the 1st of April 2028. So the LGR implementation reserves hosted by LCC but managed collectively. So all the 15 councils contribute to it. So that's doing things like ensuring we have the capacity to transfer over to LGR, looking at procurement of specialist support and advisory services, communications. There's things like election costs. So obviously we need to pay for the new unitary elections and the people successful will get an allowance as well. External legal advice, purchase of systems and information technology. So that's what it is, Madam. It's a £30 million implementation reserve, all 15 councils that are paying. It's split between upper tier and district councils and our contribution is I think 839,876. A little bit more put aside in case we need it really. And the reality is whether we like it or not, we are going to have new councils, we expect, in shadow form within just 12 months. And obviously, we've got to make sure that we make that a success going forward, Madam Mayor. So that's all the report is about. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Brown. Is that seconded, please? Councillor Desai, thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Any amendments? No. Can we move to the vote? You don't wish to speak, councillor Desai, do you? Right, can we move to the vote, please? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That report is carried. I'm just going to do the next one, which is simple, and I'm going to take a break before that. Sorry, councillor Potter. Just hold on for 2 more seconds. Are there any notices of changes to membership? No, there shouldn't be really at this time of year. No. Councillor Analyst, no. Right, thank you. So we're now going to have a very short 10-minute break, and then we'll come back in. Thank you.
want me there? Because
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, so item 10 is a notice of motion submitted by Councillor Duke entitled Reforming the Disabled Facilities Grants. The notice of motion was submitted within the correct time frame. However, officers had to confirm some aspects of the notice of motion, which therefore delayed it from being included in the publication of the original agenda. Councillor Duke, will you be moving the motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I brought this motion forward today on behalf of residents who need to apply for disabled facilities grants to adapt their homes but are struggling to get the full funding that they need. These grants are for essential works to ensure disabled residents either stay, for essential works to ensure disabled residents either stay in their homes for as long as possible or to safely care for loved ones at home. The statutory grant amount has been frozen at £30,000 since 2008, whereas building costs have nearly doubled. I'm particularly concerned about the impact of this freeze on children with complex needs and their parents. These families often require a modest extension for a wet room and a downstairs bedroom, but £30,000 won't cover that these days. These parents are selflessly dedicated but exhausted. They deserve all the support that we can give them, and that means that they need more funding than they are currently getting from this council. My wake-up call was that of Penny, her mum Natalie and brother James. They've spurred me on to submit this motion to try to help them and other families in similar circumstances. Penny has a very rare genetic condition. As a result, she is severely learning disabled and non-verbal. She has sleep difficulties, which means she doesn't understand that nighttime means sleepy time. She has reflux and autism. She is also doubly incontinent, has balance problems, and to self-regulate, she bangs her head on the wall. On a good day, Penny is a happy, smiley child, enjoys school, loves watching traffic at the grey warehouse roundabout, and is a master at spinning on her head. Penny is now 11. A year ago, her occupational therapist advised that her home was unsafe and that she needs a downstairs bedroom and a wet room to keep her and mum safe. Natalie looked for alternative rental houses for months, but none were available that suited Penny's needs. Natalie applied for disabled facilities grant, but the money had run out, so she had to wait months for her application to be processed. She found out she could get £30,000 of DFG, yet the works would cost £72,000. She got a significant contribution from her landlord, but still had a £20,000 shortfall. No money, no job, because Penny needs 24/7 care and no way to raise funds. In despair, Natalie started selling off anything she could in the family home. Board games, old bikes, blinds, furniture, that got her a few £100s. She put in applications to charities, but drew a blank. Eventually, Sullivan's Heroes said they would give her a platform for crowdfunding, and she has set up a penny for penny raffle and fair. Seeing Natalie's determination to try to do the best for her daughter has been incredibly humbling and is the reason why this motion is here in front of you. I am appalled that a family in Preston in such a desperate situation isn't getting the help that they need from this council. How humiliating is it to sell your children's toys to try to fill an enormous funding gap? I am now helping a second family who are a couple of steps behind Natalie. They have 4 children, 3 with disabilities and 2 requiring 24/7 care. They also need a wet room and additional bedroom, but with quotes of £140,000 to extend their bungalow upwards, they can't go out anymore, and a working life of just 6 years before their children leave education, that is beyond their reach with the statutory grant amount. We know there are another 19 families in a similar position in Preston right now. I have tried and failed to persuade Councillor Coupland and Councillor Brown to make a discretionary top-up payment for Penny. Other councils in the North West already do this. Rosendale Council offer a £30,000 top-up. Pendle and Ribble Valley councils offer a £10,000 top-up. Even the Ribble Valley MP, who is Labour, has written to Councillor Brown asking him to make discretionary payments, but he won't. So I am here in a last resort situation, asking you to do the right thing for disabled people with complex needs and their carers. Support them with what they need to keep their children at home and out of the care system, rather than being left in unsafe living conditions, waiting for someone to be hurt or to break. Madam Mayor, I would like to request a named vote on this motion. Thank you.
Yeah, I need a seconder for the named vote and also a seconder for the actual notice of motion, please. So, are you, Councillor Van Mierle, are you doing the both? Thank you.
He's speaking now.
Are there any amendments to this notice of motion? Are you?
Are you going to speak now, Julia?
Oh, you want to speak now? Sorry, apologise.
Thank you for listening to Fiona. I hope you've had time to take that information in. I've been a district nurse and I currently still do home visits for the housebound. I also do annual health checks for those with complex needs. Home adaptations for children and adults with complex needs are essential for safety, dignity, physical and mental health. The adaptations are not a luxury or a lifestyle choice. Without them, some are forced into residential care. Hospital discharges are frequently delayed because it's unsafe for them to go home. Children with complex needs have frequent hospital admissions. I'd like you all to pause a moment and put yourself in somebody else's shoes, somebody who lives this life. Consider for yourself or a loved one
downstairs living in one room. That room is your toilet. You're unable to shower. Crawling upstairs on all fours in pain, and I had someone tell me this a few weeks ago, and they were unable to shower as well. Trying to carry your 16-year-old upstairs. Imagine those daily struggles that these families face. A true measure of any society can be found in how it treats the most vulnerable. It's not my quote, it's Gandhi's quote. I'm sure you've all heard it before. Let's support Fiona's motion and move a step closer to ensure essential needs are met for the most vulnerable in our society and make sure that their funding needs without a fortune are met. Thank you.
No, I don't think there are any amendments on this, but Councillor Brown, you've indicated you wish to speak.
Yes, we'll be voting against this, Madam Mayor. We feel that we can deal with these matters in a better forum than a a council meeting during PERDA, to be honest. And I did mention to Councillor Duke, we'd be happy to have a conversation. What we're not going to do is change a policy that has been widely consulted on and implemented in the last 5 months. And I want to pay tribute to Councillor Coupland on that, because she has been advocating very strongly for an extra £600,000 to go into DFG. And this is money that we put in addition to government. Obviously, we're not without compassion, we're not without empathy on this side of the chamber, but we are dealing with recovering from 14 years of austerity. And we can't do everything we'd like to do within this council. The reality is that under the previous DFG policy, we actually were spending up within 5 months or 4 months. You know, we'd love to give everyone everything that they want who has a disability, but the reality is the money isn't there. That is a real world. Additionally, we did say, and this is a really, really important point, that social housing providers that we have across our community, they should make a contribution as well. So the policy is going to mean that a lot more people are going to benefit. And obviously, the intelligence is that the government will be reviewing the formula soon, and we're happy to have a conversation with you about how we lobby appropriately to do that. The issue we have with this motion is the proposing to get into budgetary matters at a PERDA council meeting. We've had all kinds of accusations about us using the PERDA process for political gains. What the Liberal Democrat doing is during an election period did try to get extra money into this during a pre-election period. We're meant to be taking our philosophies to the people out there. So I just want to say what our record is: an extra 600,000, which is primarily government funding from the cost of living crisis. More people are benefiting now. We'll continue to lobby for a change. We'll continue to speak to MPs about a change. We're keeping what the government are saying under review, and we're open to a conversation with Councillor Duke and others outside this forum. But it's just not appropriate, we feel, unlike the bank, which we've been trying to do for 5, 6, 7 years, to bring a new political item to a council meeting within PERDA. You know, and we'll see what the Liberals do in terms of publicity afterwards. Will it be something that you're going to try and gain political credit for or not? We will see, and the proof of the pudding will be eaten. I personally am not going to say anything about this for political gain, but we'll see whether the opposition do that going forward. And the reality is, and this is a point you can, this is a point you can't get away from. You guys impose the most crippling austerity on a working class community like Preston. No, and 330,000 people, according to public health professionals, lost their lives. Many of them were from disabled backgrounds. Many of them were people on low incomes. That is your record. And we're having to deal now with the choices that you made in government. And like John Kennedy said, you didn't have to go into bed with the Tory party and cut 30% of our council's budget. You didn't have to cut disability benefits. So obviously we do have complete compassion and empathy for people going through this, but you've got to be judged by your actions. And sadly, on this, your actions are dreadful. You put the Tory party in charge for 5 years, had some of the most brutal cuts that cost people's lives within our community. That's the reality of it. So obviously, we'll look at every single case and we'll work with you to make sure we can lobby it and do something about this. But now is not the time. Let's wait till after the election. Let's have a conversation outside the political arena and we'll do what we can, because there's merit in this. But we shouldn't be having this debate today on something new, unlike the community bank, which has been a long-standing policy for 6 to 7 or 8 years, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Fiona and Julie for what they've said. I found that really moving. I think for a long time, I've complained about moral superiority from people on the Labour Party. But what we've got today is an absolute example of why it's absolute nonsense. You talk about, we don't have the money. You've literally, an hour ago, spent £750,000 on a bank that might not be delivered. And we're talking about some of the cases you've, you know, and I saw the two of you scoffing and chortling while Julie was speaking, a district nurse having to deal with this day in, day out. Yet you think you're better than Julie, do you? Is that what you think? So no. Again, 12th of February, Julie, Fiona raised it with you. Why didn't you do something? And I get that there are people on this Labour group that really care about this issue, and I've spoken to some of them privately, and I get where they're from. But today, what you've done is ignoring a genuine, heartfelt motion to help people at the very end of their tether, with people at the extreme end of vulnerability, to mess around with a bank that might not happen. And then you come into this chamber and say, just now, and say, well, we don't have the money to do that. You did an hour ago, and you chose not to. But I'm politicising it because you're making an awful, some people might say evil decision here, Matthew, to ignore the disabled children, to go with a bank that your own report says we might lose every penny of that money. Every penny of that money should be spent on important things in this.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to tolerate those kind of accusations in the chamber. They're completely ill-founded.
Right, it's in your report. It's your report. You've literally just done it an hour ago. So, yeah, I'll continue, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. And I think the data's there. You've had a healthcare professional telling you about the reality of it, and all we got was snigger and smirks from the leader and the deputy leader. If that doesn't tell you of why this Labour group needs probably to be out of power in 2 weeks' time, I don't know what does. The fact that we have a Preston resident who's come to one of our councillors, said about her, that I can't even imagine going through what she's going through every day. And then when she watches this webcast, what will she see? The leader and the deputy leader smirking and having some fun with it, and accusing it of politicising. These are people, your first duty should be to these people. Of course, I'm going to support this motion. I'm astounded that every member of this Labour group is going to vote down this motion. You really should look at your conscience. It will be a name vote. Some of you, it might be your last vote in this chamber. Do the right thing. Ignore your leadership. Do the right thing by the people of Preston, and do the right thing by these disabled kids. Vote in favour of this motion.
Councillor Cleveland, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I feel really emotional here that Councillor Duke is giving example, and I'm totally sympathetic. It's been in my portfolio for 18 months, and I have driven it with officers to make sure that every DFG that we get, that we support. It went from, the reason that it went from 50k cap to 30 to give Preston residents more of an opportunity so they could apply for more DFG. And we've had, since we changed that policy, we've had numerous applications. I am totally sympathetic with what Councillor Duke has said and the other colleague. And I totally, I wish in reality that we could have supported and made those discretionary. So Councillor Duke has given us 3 examples of the clients that, she presented for us to make a decision on those discretionary. What about the other 26 that we had the application from? They was just as equally important as the other 3. We just don't have enough money to make those applications. And I recognise that, and we put an extra 500,000 in the budget to be able to, you know, make more payments to DFG applicants. So to say that Councillor Coupland wasn't listening, that is not totally true. That is totally off the record. I did listen, but I had 25, not only paediatric DFGs, I've got the adult DFGs too. So there's not enough money in the budget. In reality, we would love to have loads and loads of money to go into DFG, but that just wasn't the case. And we were totally supportive. We are totally supportive. Hence, we are pushing more and more money through to this. So in the last budget in March, we put 500,000 in. But there is, they're emotional, you know, to say that one case is more important than the other. It isn't. Every case is important. Every paediatric case is as important as the other. Every adult case for DFG is as important as the other. So to stand in council to say that, you know, Councillor Coupland and Councillor Brown wasn't listening, we were very much listening and we took it on board. And the more applications we were getting, working with the officers, hence we put 500,000 more into the pot. Thank you. And I'm really emotional because we on this side really care and we're pushing the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coupland. Councillor Rawlinson, please.
If this was a genuine collaborative motion, why wouldn't it mention the extra money that we've put in?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it? But of course it's not enough, which leads me directly to my next point. Can you name a public service in this country that is fully funded? That's what your motion is asking for. It's asking for this to be fully funded. Name one. Name a single public service in this country that is fully funded. The NHS, homelessness, the roads, nothing. Nothing is fully funded because there's not enough money to go around. Of course, everybody could make a case for their thing, of course. So it's a terrible thing that's happening. Terrible things happen every day because there's not enough money to do stuff. Why just ask now about fully funding this when there's 100 other things that don't get fully funded? And, you know, to call us evil is just sheer hypocrisy. 300,000 people died under your government. It's disgusting. And you should take it back, John.
Councillor Henshaw, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in such a terrible quandary at this moment in time, I've got to say. This is such an emotive subject. I'm really surprised it was allowed to come because it is just party political point scoring. Of course it is. And I actually really surprised that Labour just didn't tear up and do a new one, actually. And then they'd have been doing the same thing. But anyway, and who knows how I'm going to vote on this? I don't know. I hope there's a bit more of a debate so that I can make my mind up. But I think I wanted to point out that about party political. It's party political broadcast, absolutely, undoubtedly. But one of your points about resolving to write to the Secretary of State for levelling up housing, etc. There's absolutely no point in that, is there really? Because this government, the previous government, and God help us if we get a reform government, are all into warfare and not welfare. And that's what needs addressing. And again, don't know how I'm going to vote, but hey.
Not sure I can bring you back, Councillor Brown, because you've already spoken.
It's a point of order, Madam Mayor.
Right,
I
okay.
want the Liberal Democrat leader to withdraw the accusation that myself and Councillor Rawlins were actually scoffing at that individual case. What we were doing was discussing internally the bare first shake of you guys being on the high horse about these things with the austerity programme. We're not doing that, and we'd never do that. So you're trying to make us out like monsters for political reasons. That is totally unfair, and that should be withdrawn, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
We're just double checking, Councillor Brown. We think it's just political debate and not a point of order, but a point of order is a breach of council procedures and rules, and this is not a point of order. Thank you. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, when you listen to the actual story of these families, how can you not possibly think, well, it would be a great idea to help them. But in politics, and one of my daughters had a very small handicap when she was younger, and I had to go and perform sort of stretching and things on her foot every day when she was a young kid. So that's only a very small thing compared with what these other parents go through. But this is casework being brought up here now for purely political reasons. I would like to help these people, but this has been brought in when the Liberals protested about the bank being brought in to this meeting because it's in Purda, and then they throw this in and make it very emotional, and then they want to actually have a named vote on it. It is only for their own political reasons. I dare say everybody in the chamber would like to help people who are handicapped. People look at reform and think we're some sort of, we've got horns on and things like that. That isn't the case. We're ordinary people. We like to help people out, and their case is, it's terrible. But politicians take hard decisions. They take hard decisions because they have a budget, because they've got to meet policy requirements. And I think this is the wrong notice of motion in the wrong place and the wrong time. I would say take it up with the cabinet members. I'm sure that they'll find something going. Yes, I know you have now, but I'm saying going forward, take it up again and keep pushing it, because that's the only way you're going to sort this out. But I think it is purely a party political point to make, and I think it just shows the hypocrisy of the Liberals to actually say that you were bringing the bank thing forward during Purda and then throw this in. It is and ask for a named vote. Well, I'm sure that I'll be looking on your internet site to see what I've said about this after this meeting. So it's unfortunate, but I'm going to go with the Labour group and I'm going to not vote for this particular notice of motion. Wrong time, wrong place, hypocrisy from the Liberals. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Darby, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think if you're saying that this is party political, you need to read this, read the text, show us where this is party political. It is scrupulously clinical and factual. If it doesn't include all the facts that you might like in it, you can amend it. You have the choice to amend it. You usually do go out of your way to amend other people's motions to include facts that you want in there. You haven't done this. You are choosing to vote against it. That is the choice you're making. You're making the choice earlier today to bring the bank to us. You're making the choice to spend the taxpayers' money in this city on the bank. You are choosing to vote against this. I would ask you to make another choice. Thank you.
Thank you. One meeting, please. Councillor Landless, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm rather like Councillor Henshaw. I've really needed to listen to this debate because I'm caught between the devil and the deep blue sea here. I listened with interest to the first two speakers, and I was very moved. And immediately my response was, well, surely we can just raise the money and help these families out. But then I listened to Councillor Coupland, who I also thought spoke very well, who said quite plainly, it's not just these two families, but lots of other families. Madam Mayor, I am speaking.
Can we just let each councillor finish speaking, please?
I don't speak very often and I don't speak for very long, but I should be entitled to say what I'm thinking. Thank you. Accepted, John. I listened with interest to what Councillor Coupland and others had to say. And, I wish I had, we all feel the same in this chamber, the magic wand to solve this. But I don't think it's that easy. But I think we've got, Councillor Thompson sort of said, we've got to move forward. There's got to be some commitment to solve this problem. I just think, unfortunately, this motion, it's a funny time of year, isn't it? To April, May time. I don't know why, but I just think, we're trying to push this through. I think that the Labour benches have given some sort of commitment to try and resolve this problem, and it's got to be funded, and it's got to be funded properly. So, you know, I'm still speaking in somewhat of a quandary. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else who wishes to speak. Oh, sorry, Councillor Peake, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. About half an hour ago, maybe an hour ago, the opposition benches said that they brought the bank motion to this meeting because that's when it happened. Been waiting for it for several months, but it arrived, so it came to this meeting. This motion by Councillor Duke has been brought to this meeting because it is the time. Councillor Duke has been trying to help some families get money from various places, and it's hit a brick wall. And it just so happens that this is the meeting after the brick wall was being hit. So we're trying to get more money. So the accusations of political skullduggery bringing it to this meeting are false. If anybody wishes to challenge the timing of this and the work that Fiona has done, Councillor Duke has done, and the brick walls that she's hit, please see Councillor Duke after the meeting. Thank you.
Right, now I definitely don't have any more speakers as far as I can see. So Councillor Duke, it's your time to right to reply.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I did previously ask for this discussion in February, and Councillor Coupland, I'm sorry that the work that you've done in terms of policy and trying to do the best that you can in terms of eking out the statutory grants, that work hasn't stacked up in terms of the reality of what people need. And I tried to have a conversation. I emailed both you and Councillor Brown back in February about the specific case, but I am addressing here, there's 21 families. 21 families. I'm not talking about these two. I'm just trying to use them to illustrate the point. They asked me to talk about their cases to illustrate the point that they're at their wit's end. They have nowhere else to turn. So your policy may have been well intentioned, but it's leaving families and these children or people with complex disabilities in an impossible situation. And I had hoped to avoid this motion by emailing you back in February. So I have only brought this here now. This is not a political move. You can think what you want, but this is because these families need this help now, and that's why I brought it now. You can shake your head all you want, Matthew, but I know what my intentions were, and my intentions were clear. It was to help these families. In terms of the pre-election period, we don't use PERDA anymore. It wasn't raised as an issue by officers at all. Where's your bank? You were clearly told that this was not an appropriate thing to bring forward during the pre-election period. So I completely refute that allegation as well. There was nothing implied from officers that this was not appropriate to bring this at this time. In terms of political credit for it, you guys are the ones that have politicised it. I haven't. I haven't. So you've only got yourself to blame. In terms of government funding, this is to ask government to look into. I've spoken to Mayor Ellis MP. She has written to you and Councillor to you and asked you to make a discretionary payment for this family. She did, and you did nothing. I have the paper trail of that. I have asked Mayor Ellis to speak to ministers on behalf of the two families that I have raised now, and she is doing so because there's clearly a bigger problem than just in Preston. And as I said in the motion, it should not be a postcode lottery of if you live in Rosendale, you can get the help that you need. If you live in Preston, you can't. That's not right. It's morally indefensible. In terms of Councillor Rawlinson's over dramatic statements, you know, you have the money, you're just choosing to spend it on your priorities, which is entirely within your gift. But I am using this to highlight a very clear and demonstrable need. And I'm asking you to please do something about it rather than putting your head in the sand because it doesn't fit your personal ideology or moral crusade. I did suggest that Councillor Brown, when he phoned me up yesterday, tried to phone me several times, I did suggest that the Labour group should put in an amendment. I said I would welcome an amendment, perhaps putting in the £10,000 amount that Pendle and Ribble Valley do. Matthew declined to do that. So this isn't just about 2 families. It's about 21 families, and whatever families are going to come forward, or adults in the future. And I agree with what Harry says. There needs to be some commitment to push this forward. And at the moment, you are pushing back rather than helping pull these people towards a better, safer position where they do not have to put their children in care. And that's the bottom line. Without additional help, this will cost us much more when we're a unitary authority, because that care cost will be on us. It won't be on Lancashire County Council. It will be our responsibility. So, yeah, I brought this in good faith, and I'm going to say, if this is going to be voted down, I just apologise to the families of Preston that this could have helped, because you won't listen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Now hand over to the Chief Executive for the named vote, please.
Yeah. Usual name vote on the notice of motion submitted by Councillor Duke. Starting as usual, Councillor Afzal, Councillor Atkins,
Oh, that's what I have to say.
Councillor Bell, Councillor Brown, Councillor Close, Councillor Close, Councillor Coupland, Councillor Crowe, Councillor Darby, Councillor Desai, Councillor Duke,
4.
Councillor Green, Councillor Gregg, Councillor Guys, Councillor Henshaw, Councillor Hindle, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Jewell, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Khan, Councillor Korbaki, Councillor Landless, Councillor Little, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Napper, Councillor Patel, Councillor Peake, Councillor Potter, Councillor Raisbeck, Councillor Rawlinson, Councillor Saxena, Councillor Sarwar, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Van Mierlo, Councillor Varty, Councillor Voira, Councillor Ward, Councillor Mr. Whittam, Councillor Mrs. Whittam,
Abstain.
Councillor Wise. Thank you, members.
Okay, so there was 15 votes for, there was 22 against, and there was 5 abstentions. The notice of motion is lost. Item 11 is the leader's report. Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak on the report, which is for noting only? Okay, thank you. Can we just show by hands that we note the report, please? I know. I don't make the rules. Thank you. Item 12, special urgency decisions, but there are none to report this meeting. And item 13 is date of next meeting, which is the annual meeting, which will take place at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 20th of May in the Town Hall, beginning with the mayor making. The remainder of the business will then take place the following day on Thursday, 21st of May, 2026 at 10 a.m. And I'm very pleased I haven't had to use the gavel through the whole thing. I was absolutely desperate to try and use it, but thank you ever so much. It's over and out.